Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum friends. Welcome back to the United Verse. My name is Bilal. I'll be your host, and we'll be talking about the latest transfer news that we have got so far. As you have seen the thumbnail, we will be basically speaking about what is happening currently with Manchester United. It is a big update coming in this afternoon. It has to do with the main man whose name is Mbeumo. You can see on your screen there has been breaking news coming in for him, and most probably it's a case of what is happening in regards to him. Now, we do know for a fact that Mbeumo has been linked to Manchester United, specifically after the big news coming in that he was only interested in Manchester United rather than Tottenham or Arsenal, and that is where everything began. It was also suggested that he was close to Newcastle United, but for some reason he said no. But we do know there has been a kind of things which are happening in some new perspective, and it's basically a case of Brentford losing their manager to Tottenham, and Thomas Frank, he is pretty much respected in Premier League. We do know that he has got a huge job and a huge task in terms of improving Tottenham Hotspur. Now that is where the twist takes place. It has been reported that Thomas Frank has spoken to Mbeumo, and he thinks that the player he wants from his old team, it's Mbeumo. He would love to join him at Spurs. Now, for a fact, we do know that Mbeumo has declared openly the only club that he wants to join is Manchester United. But we are hearing some reports that basically Mbeumo might be thinking about if Thomas Frank really wants him at Spurs, then there might be something into that. Now, why is that happening? We will go into detail a little bit later, but we're going to see what has been reported so far on Mbeumo. We're going to read some tweets, and then we will go further down and try to expand on this and see what is the delay between Manchester United and Mbeumo's transfer move currently at this very moment. Now, it goes on to say, we're going to start here from the report from Sky. It says Spurs have held initial talks with Brentford about a potential deal for Bryan Mbeumo. He is understood to be more intrigued by a move to Spurs. Now, Thomas Frank has become their head coach, so there you go. The key ingredient over here is that in order for Mbeumo moving to Spurs, is their relationship between the player and his ex-coach or manager, and Spurs believe that they can kind of speak to the player and make him believe that his next destination would be Spurs. He could stay in London. He doesn't have to leave London. He doesn't have to go to the north of UK. He can stay in London. His family can stay there, and he can develop as a player with Tottenham Hotspur. Spurs have also received encouragement about possible deal. Now, what does that mean? What it means is that Mbeumo's camp is speaking to Tottenham, and for some reason it wasn't beforehand, but now it looks as if the camp from Mbeumo, his agent or his lawyers, they would be thinking, you know what, maybe it's not such a bad move after all. You get to stay in London, you get to play under your old ex-manager who believes in you, who has a trust in you, and that is something which doesn't come that easy. You're going to be playing in the Champions League, and that would be a big plus for the likes of Mbeumo, so he wouldn't want to think that, you know what, maybe this might be a better move than Manchester United. Now, why is his camp thinking amongst those lines? I think the case is that maybe Manchester United, as we have done the last show with Gyökeres, we do know that Manchester United are struggling right now financially. They are looking in terms of outgoings. I think they are more focusing in terms of trying to raise some cash by doing some sales, and then if they are able to raise some cash, then they will go back in for those premium targets such as Gyökeres and Mbeumo. I think Manchester United have done the deal which they wanted, which was Cunha. It was pretty plain and simple. Cunha has joined Manchester United. Now it's a case of, in order to get the next two premium players, United need to have some cash, and I think by the end of this year, which is going to be the end of June, they don't have that much amount of money where they can bid for both Gyökeres as well as Mbeumo, because if they have to bid, they will somehow have to find 60 to 70 million in their bank, which I don't think so they have. So from that perspective, they're looking for some sales. Once they get one or two players out of their squad, if they are able to get those deals done, then it might be a case of they would go in one or the other. Like they could go in for Mbeumo or they could go for Gyökeres, depending upon which one looks like it needs urgency. Let's say Gyökeres deal can be done in July, so United can hold on to July. But remember, the preseason starts in the month of July, and Amorim has said that he would want all of his players before the preseason starts so that he could kickstart his new regime in terms of what he wants to do with his squad. Now, let's say Gyökeres comes in the month of July. I'm just saying it hypothetically over here because I don't think so Gyökeres is going to be an easy deal, specifically after that whole saga with the Sporting Lisbon president and the player. I think there is some tiff between those two parties, and I think it's not going to be resolving any time sooner. I think Gyökeres has even said on his Instagram post that there are some things which being said from his behalf, and he wouldn't want to comment on that until the right time comes. So he is not going to speak or anything more. He will wait. When the time comes, then he will kind of clarify what's been happening. So let's say hypothetically that Manchester United wait in July for Gyökeres, and then they would be thinking, okay, let's see what we can do with Mbeumo. In order to get Mbeumo, first of all, they have to agree on Brentford terms that they are looking for 60 million, similar fee to what United paid for Cunha to Wolves. And Brentford have said we want a similar fee because our player is also on the same level as Cunha. He has, on the other hand, scored 20 plus goals. So he is something that we count as a hot commodity. And in this transfer market, it's not that he has just got one suitor, he has got plenty of suitor, although we do know now that he has mentioned that his preference would be Manchester United. So if you want him and he wants you, then you will have to pay the premium price that we have reported to you. So let's say Manchester United, they say what, you know what, we're going to keep Gyökeres deal in the window of July. So when the month of July comes, at that moment, in that given time, we are going to look at that then. And right now, we solely focus on the outgoings and see if we can get this Mbeumo deal over the line. Now, from that perspective, Mbeumo would be also speaking to Tottenham. Remember, when he mentioned that he was only interested in Manchester United, Newcastle United, they dropped their interest. Arsenal, they dropped their interest. And it was only Manchester United who wanted him. But as soon as Spurs got Thomas Frank as their new manager, suddenly reports came out that Mbeumo is in talks with Tottenham, and Thomas Frank would want him to be the next player, that maybe the first signing, maybe the first transfer target for Thomas Frank. Maybe he would have had discussion with the board that, listen, if you want me, I want to bring in my transfer targets, and this is what I want to implement. This is what I want to do. I'm happy with the squad that we've got at Tottenham, but I need to have 3 or 4 key additions, and those 4 players might be coming, like not all of them, but some of them might be coming from my old club, and I'm sure that Mbeumo is going to be on the top of that list. Now, let's say Mbeumo is speaking to Tottenham, and Tottenham are trying to convince him, you know what, we got Champions League, look at this new stadium, you can get to play with good quality players. We have just won the Europa League. We might do good in Europe, in Champions League as well. We will be in hunt for the top 4 in terms of to play Champions League once again in next season. So why don't you come us? Why don't you join us? You get to stay in London. You get to keep your home. You are not disrupted by moving to the north of UK. Your children can stay in school. your wife is going to be happy, and all this, as the usual stuff it is. It's normally the clubs, they tend to kind of present it in that kind of manner. Now, Mbeumo, he would be thinking, what if Manchester United priority is Gyökeres rather than me? Let's say he thinks in that manner. If United really wanted me, they should have bid for me, and I would have been holding the United shirt, and the transfer would have done. It would have been completed. What he's looking for is some sort of guarantee. He knows that Manchester United are in talks with Brentford, but so far United haven't come after that first bid. So that means there is still some gap between the Brentford valuation as well as the United valuation. And I don't think so Mbeumo would want to give a lot of time to this case where both of the clubs take a lot of time to agree. Now, what will happen is he is going to make sure that it's just not Manchester United, there is also another club. And he wouldn't mind if it's Spurs or any other club comes in right now in this very moment. Because it's better to have two options rather than just one. So Mbeumo camp is currently in talks not only with Manchester United, but right now they have started their talks with Spurs. So let's say if everything is agreed in terms of a contract, in terms of bonuses, in terms of clauses, it will be a case of what will Spurs be willing to pay to Brentford. Now, on Brentford case, they would be thinking, first it was only Manchester United, but beforehand it was Newcastle and Arsenal, and we do know that there were many other clubs interested in our player. They would be thinking currently right now, what? We like what's happening right now, because then, even though Tottenham are very stingy, they don't tend to pay higher fees. They do know for a fact that if Tottenham have come in this late and maybe they are looking to get Mbeumo, they wouldn't mind a bidding war. And that is something which is not going to be encouraged by the new Manchester United. I don't think so Omar Berrada or Jason Wilcox or even Wivel would want to get into a bidding war. And that is the whole crux of the situation is. I think United have set out a fee. It's a similar case to previous year when Gerard Branthwaite was, you could say, the top most wanted transfer target for United. And for some reason, Everton, they weren't budging on what they wanted. They were saying that this is what we want, and if you don't get us that money, we're going to keep the player at the club. And they stick to their guns. And Manchester United, for the first time ever, they moved back from that transfer move. So let's say if Brentford, they tend to think that, we do know that Tottenham are not going to pay super money. And we also know that Manchester United are not in a similar situation as they used to be in previous years, where if you would have asked them like 70 million or 60 million, they would just pay in the end and would have the player. I think Brentford are going to look at this, they're going to be much more calmer, and they would hope that if there are two clubs interested in our player right now, we wouldn't mind to have another club coming in and inquiring of our player. And I think that is what Brentford want. They want a bidding war over Mbeumo. Now, in that scenario, I think Manchester United are not going to jump ahead, because in bidding war, you have to always kind of bid a little bit higher than the other party, and I don't think so United would want to get into that. Even though the United fans would want to get Mbeumo, and they wouldn't mind if United would pay 5 or 10 million extra, because everybody knows the quality he has, and he is far much better to what we have already got at the club. So United fans wouldn't mind if you have to pay 5 or 10 million extra. Now we're going to come back to another news over here, which is basically coming from Ben Jacobs, the renowned journalist who is in the know for Manchester United transfer news. What he has reported about this story is, while Spurs have stepped up their interest in Mbeumo, conversations are not advanced as of yet. So basically what he says is, even though Spurs have started this conversation with his camp, Spurs have started this conversation with Brentford, but they are not at the advanced level. What do you mean by advanced level? What it means is that the first initial steps are, what is your demand? And at that given time and moment, the player representatives, they tend to give two figures, that this is the minimum that what we want and this is the maximum that we're looking for. And that is where the club who wants the player, they kind of take those two figures, they go back and they study, and they tend to study, okay, what value are we getting from this player? If he's a goal scorer and he is the one that we want in our team, because we scored about 50 or 60 goals last season, and if this player can provide us 15 plus goals, then spending this much amount of transfer money and this much amount of wage money is going to give us the return that we're looking for. So when they balance it out, once they calculate those numbers, then they tend to come with a figure and say, you know what, we're just going to be willing to pay you this much wage. What do you say about this? And then the player camp, they look at that offer from the club and they think about it, they discuss it. The agent and the player, they discuss it between themselves, and then they counter it. No, we don't want this figure, we're looking for this figure, and then it happens back and forth. Sometimes what happens is some of the agents, they are already working beforehand with the club who are interested in the player, and they kind of agree like 2 months before or 1 month before. But in this scenario, in this case, I think this has happened suddenly. So Spurs would be in initial stages, and whereas Manchester United, they've already sorted out their personal terms with Mbeumo. It's just the club part which is the bit which is missing right now. So from that perspective, Ben Jacobs says Tottenham are at the initial stage and Manchester United are one step ahead. The player's preferred option is still Manchester United. Now this is big, this is huge. Mbeumo, as much as he is considering Tottenham Hotspur, his still right now in this very moment, his preference is still Manchester United. A lot depends, now here comes the big part, a lot depends on if United meet the valuation. There you go. Now that thing, the whole move for Mbeumo to Manchester United depends on what is going to happen between Brentford and Manchester United. We do know 45 plus 10 million was rejected. Brentford wants 60 million. Now, is that the whole fee up front or is it in installments? We don't know the gory details about what exact Brentford are looking for, but Brentford have clearly stated they want for sure 60 million. Not in something in add-ons, not a figure which you would put bonuses in. No, 60 million for sure. That's what they're looking for Mbeumo. And Manchester United have offered only 45 million. Now, United do not want to look like as if they will suddenly agree with whatever the other club is demanding. Because if they do that, then imagine Sporting Lisbon president, because he will look at that and he would say, you know what? You offered them 45 million and they said 60 million. And what happened was, you agreed upon it and you went 15 million up and you're willing to pay that much for a player. So my player who has scored 40, 50 plus goals and he's much better than what you're already taken, why can't you pay me 10, 15 million extra? And that is what the concern is. United do not want to pay over the odds, so they are very careful in terms of what they are willing to offer for the player that they're interested in. Now, in that perspective, you have to understand that this will take some time. It's not because Manchester United want to act smartly in the transfer market. It's also because United have got no European football next season. They're not going to have that extra cash. They're not going to have that extra gateway receipts, because remember, whenever they're playing at home, they're always receiving receipts for European games, for the FA Cup, for the League Cup, and that is a bonus. That is other than the Premier League games. So that kind of 9-10 games which they tend to play every season, it's not going to be there anymore. In terms of TV money, it won't be there anymore. So that is something which United will take a big hit upon. So that is why Manchester United are a little bit conservative in terms of spending. The only way they can open their hand or they can open their war chest if they are able to offload some players who are already in the squad and they're on big wages, such as Rashford, such as Sancho, such as Anthony. Those three players are the major players which United really want to get rid of. And if they are able to do so, even if they can at least save those wages, they will be in a very positive side, and they can easily try to deal with Mbeumo camp. They can try to deal with Sporting Lisbon president, and everything will come down to the fact that they need to sell those three players. If Spurs are given encouragement, they will better the offer. Now, there you go. What does that mean? What that means is, let's say Mbeumo, he kinds of accept the terms being offered by Spurs, and he goes on to say, you know what, I wouldn't mind to play for Spurs. I wouldn't mind moving to North London, and yeah, why not? I'm willing to join Spurs. That means then only Tottenham will see that as an encouragement, and then they will go to Brentford and they will put in a serious, real, a better offer rather than what they'll be willing to offer right now, because the player has not, he has started those conversations, but he hasn't indicated that he's willing to join Spurs over than any other club, which is Manchester United. So that is what's the latest with Mbeumo, and you can say that this is going to take more time, as we did said to you in the last episode. This is something which takes time in terms of whenever there are like 2 or 3 clubs. Sometimes the club really wants the player wants the club a lot more than any other club, but then the finances come in. It's so many factors, there's so many things in between, but everything depends upon what's the middle ground. If somehow Manchester United, let's say they're able to sell one of those 3 players, who knows, they will go to Brentford and they would say, you know what, we're willing to give you 55 for sure and 10 million in add-ons, and those will be achievable add-ons, and you can get Mbeumo then. So that is something we will have to wait for, maybe a week. Today is 13th. I would say you will have to give at least a week and see what happens on this front. So this is the latest what we have for Mbeumo. Now we're going to go forward and see what other news is coming in. This is a huge news coming in regarding to Osimhen. We're going to tell you about what is happening with him. Victor Osimhen is now back at the center of renewed talks with Manchester United, which have recently resumed around the terms discussed a few weeks ago. I think there were talks, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, or maybe 10 days ago, something like that. And you know, it was a case of that United were basically inquiring what it will take to get Osimhen from Napoli. And I think they had some talks with his agent as well as with the club. It was just an initial conversation. It wasn't something in depth. They were just asking in terms of, we would just like to know, we would just like to inquire, and then we'll see if you're interested and we'll come back to you. So this is now what has happened. This is a new channel which has opened right now. At the center of renewed talks with Manchester United, which has recently resumed around the terms discussed a few weeks ago. 12 million euro salary for the striker and a 75 million euro compensation package including bonuses for Napoli. So basically Napoli are looking for 60 million euros plus 15 million in add-ons. This is something I won't be surprised at, because we do know that Sporting Lisbon have made a mark. They are not going to sell Gyökeres less than 80 million euros. And that is where Manchester United have started to look for other names such as Ekitike, Osimhen. I won't be even shocked or even surprised if they're speaking to Mateta or even Jonathan David or any other striker right now currently available in the transfer market. So from that perspective, from that end, I would believe that after that Gyökeres saga, United would have been shocked to find out as well, because the word which was actually given to United was he's available for 60 million euros. And United believe, you know what, that's the figure we are okay with. We get a good world-class quality striker for 60 million euros. Our manager is going to be happy because he's already played under him, and we're okay with the player. We're happy with the player. And for 60 million euros, yeah, we're going to take him. But what happened was, as soon as they went in and Sporting Lisbon went, no, who told you it's 60 million euros? We're looking for 80 plus million euros. We're not asking 100 million euros, but we're asking more than 60 million euros. And that is something Manchester United were taken back, because what they were told about is completely false information, and they went out to inquire more that where did this figure came in from, where did this 60 million euro came in from. And when they digged in, it was a revelation that basically last year the guy who negotiated on behalf of Gyökeres with the club has already left. There is no written notice or written contract or any written agreement between the player and the club. It was all vocal. It was not something written on the piece of paper, and that is the reason why it was called a gentleman's agreement. That is the reason Gyökeres has gone ballistic. He has removed everything on his Instagram page. He has removed Sporting Lisbon. He has even went on to say, I'm not ever going to play for Sporting Lisbon. Now, what does that mean? We do not know. What we can say with the latest Instagram post by Gyökeres, he is kind of re-evaluating his situation, because whatever he wants to do, Sporting Lisbon will demand to what they think is right for their club, and I think they've made the decision that they're not going to sell less than 80 million euros until and unless they are in some financial challenge, or they're in some financial issue, or they really want some of their targets and they haven't got the money. Maybe in that scenario, they would be willing to lower the fee for Gyökeres and make sure that they get good money and they can go back in transfer market and spend that Gyökeres money on the players that they really want. Everything depends. So far, the evidence that we have seen is Sporting Lisbon do not want to look weak in terms of, because they have got other players in the squad as well, and I'm sure that the other clubs and the other teams would be willing to take other players from their playing squad as well. And Sporting Lisbon wants to give out a message that, listen, it's not something that we're going to accept to whatever you are offering to us. We're going to accept the right and actual fee which we think is worth it, and that is basically happening with Gyökeres' situation. So from that perspective, I think Manchester United are going back to the drawing board, and they're reassessing their options, where they think that the next target they would be willing to have is Osimhen and Ekitike. So let's see where this situation turns out to be. And by the looks of this, I think United are not waiting for July. I think United really want to get those 3 or 4 transfers which have been reported in the media, in the social media, in the know journalists. Is basically they want to get those targets before the preseason starts, so that Amorim can start with them straight away and United can kickstart their season and try to better the last season position, the last season performances, and many, many more things. So that is what United are trying to do behind the scenes. We will move on to the next story, which has to do with the goalkeeping situation, Andre Onana. Now, this is something which is very interesting, because Andre Onana is under the impression that he will be at Manchester United next season. He's got 3 years left on his contract, and so far no firm offers have materialized from tentative interest from Saudi Arabia. So what it says is that no European club, no club in Premier League are willing to take a chance with Onana, not even on permanent transfer, not even on a loan. So what does that mean is Onana has got a very low stock value. That is a big concern for Manchester United, because I think Amorim would have, after the whole season, I'm sure he would have sat down with Umar Barada as well as Wivel, as well as Jason Wilcox, and he would have said, you know what, if you can't get me anything, then at least get me 2 things. One would be a world-class striker, and the second one would be get me a goalkeeper. Because if you look at last season, the blunders, the big mistakes, the disarray was coming from no other position other than the goalkeeping position. And that is a big, big concern for Amorim. In order to make this team better, he needs to make sure that United do not concede those kind of goals which Onana conceded last season. And for that particular reason, he would have said to the board, you know what, get me anything other than Onana in that goalkeeping position. And that is where I think the concern has started to creep in with United backroom staff that nobody's interested in him. Saudi Arabia not coming in for him. What are we going to do? Because he's already on a good contract as well. He's got plenty of years on his contract as well. We can't get rid of him. Nobody's interested in him. It might be the case that he stays here next season and we'll have to make him play. But it's not going to work. I think what United need to do is they need to cut their losses on this man and they need to make sure that they get Martinez at all cost. If not Martinez, they got Mainoo. Get anyone other than this guy. You cannot have Onana in goal anymore. I don't care if you don't get Gyökeres, if you don't get Mbeumo. You need to make sure that the first replacement should be of Onana. I'm not saying anything personal against Onana, but I don't think so he can improve Manchester United anymore. He has been given a lot of chances by Erik ten Hag, by Amorim. I think it has to stop. United need to get a new goalkeeper, period. If tomorrow I wake up and I see a breaking news coming in that United have agreed with Aston Villa on Emiliano Martinez or Manchester United have agreed with AC Milan for Mike Maignan, I'm going to be over the moon. If United do not buy any other player after those goalkeeper acquisition, I'm going to be happy because United cannot concede those kind of goals which Onana was conceding. I mean, they were really, really poor. They were so bad that you really wanted to turn the television off. You didn't want to see the game and you wanted to think that, you know, this cannot be happening. You cannot spend 50 million euros or pound on a player who is as bad as we are watching on the screen. And I think this is a real concern for United. If they can't get rid of him, United are going to be in a pickle. And that is something which is a concern for not only United fans, but also the coaching staff as well as Amorim, and I'm sure for the whole club as well. So anyway, this is being reported by Rob Dawson. And lastly, we're going to discuss about Omar Berrada said he was interested in recruiting players who want to join Manchester United because they believe in the club. If anybody did not want to come because the team aren't in the Champions League, United probably do not want them anyway. I think this is a wrong message. I think Omar Berrada thinking is wrong. I think this is something which shouldn't be said in this manner, because if you say it in that way, you are kind of telling that Manchester United do not really need Champions League, they do not really need European games, and their name is enough for a player to come and join them. No, the whole thing for Manchester United to be that renowned, to be that big, is due to the only reason that they were successful. And how are you successful? You are successful by being the #1 team in the country, by winning the Premier League, and also contesting the other top European sides such as Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Juventus, AC Milan. You tend to contest with them and see if you are better than them. And that is where Champions League or Europa League come in. And that is something where you tend to show that you are successful not only in your country, but you're successful all across the continent as well. So you cannot say that Manchester United are depending upon their aura or they're depending upon their history. Those are just one aspect of the whole collective or a collage of aspects. And I think that Manchester United should be speaking to the players, saying that, you know what, we have been this much successful and we want you to join us so that not only you could be successful, but you could make Manchester United successful. And the reason we're going after you, the reason we want you is so that you make us successful. And the only way to do is by joining us. So we're going to do that together, and that is what we want to do. Other than that, I think it's ridiculous to say that, you know what, our name is enough. Imagine if you get relegated. Imagine the kind of players you're going to be attracting in the championship. I wouldn't want to be there. I wouldn't want to be there. I don't want to even think about that. So, Umar Barada needs to rethink. I know he has to say these kind of things, but he shouldn't. What he needs to say is this, that we want to be successful, we want to win the Premier League, we want to win the Champions League, we want to win all the competitions that we're participating in. Next season, we're going to win the League Cup, we're going to win the FA Cup. We are going to go for the top 4. We're going to be in Champions League. And we're going to contest for that Premier League as well the season after. And we're going to support our manager by getting those good quality players. That is something which he should say. He shouldn't say these kind of things. Because these kind of things are proper negative. 100% negative. So he needs to rethink about that. Then comes another news from many at Manchester United believe Joshua Zirkzee could excel in a dynamic front three with Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha on the side. Come on, this is something which I'm sorry, nothing personal against Zirkzee. Zirkzee is a very good player, but I don't think so he's a number 9. I don't think so he's a number 9. He's not a world-class number 9. I would never want him to play as a number 9 for us. He can play in that number 10. He can play that position number 8, but not as number 9. He hasn't got that kind of quality as usually the number 9 does. So this is something you tend to take with a pinch of salt. So guys, this is what we have for today. Mbeumo is the talk of the town. Will he join Manchester United? I'm sure Manchester United will look to see if they can do something, and hopefully we'll be able to get some news on that. So once again, guys, I would like to thank and appreciate of you guys for tuning in, and please do subscribe, please do press the like button, please do follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @United vs MUFC. If you're looking for latest news, you can always catch up on our Twitter handle, and I'm sure that we will be coming up with more news in the evening slot. There will be breaking news coming in as well. So once again, guys, I would like to thank and appreciate, and I'll see you in a few moments. Have a nice one, guys. Take care.